بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا ونبينا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين لا سيما بقية الله في الأرضين أجل الله تعالى فرجه الشريف اللهم أخرجني من ظلمات الوهم وأكرمني بنور الفهم اللهم افتح علينا أبواب رحمتك وانشر علينا خزائن علومك برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. Alhamdulillah, we have tawfiq to continue our study of the book Ta'aleem و Tarbiyat در Islam, Training and Education in Islam by the late Ayatullah Mutahhari. Our discussion today is about the link between ibadah, worship, and plans and programs of education. In Farsi, it is پیوند عبادت با برنامه‌های تربیتی. How Islam connects acts of worship with educational programs. So basically, Ayatullah Mutahhari wants to explain that acts of worship are not merely for the sake of worship. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has designed them in the way that they have lots of educational aspects as well. He starts with highlighting the main outline of the book. So he says, we talked about the significance of ta'aqqul, thinking, reasoning, and learning. This is to give us ma'rifah, this is to give us light. Then we talked about the need for purification of the soul, for piety, because if you have ma'rifah, if you have light, but you don't have purity and sincerity, you cannot make anything. You need some power, some determination to go according to your knowledge, and this needs taqwa. Even those who are not religious, still they must talk about something like discipline, like determination, willpower, etc. Because if we know something is good, but if it conflicts with some of our preferences or convenience, we may not observe them. The third is about ibadah. So first was about reasoning and learning, second was about taqwa and self-purification. The third thing is about ibadah. And we want to discuss, of course, ibadah as much as it relates to the issue of tarbiyat, education. Ibadah helps in developing love and spiritual inclinations, a kind of warmth and energy in the heart. Iman leads to action, but actions also strengthen Iman. There's mutual relation between Iman and Amal, or faith and actions. So it is true that if you don't have Iman, you don't bring acts of worship. But acts of worship also strengthen Iman. They strengthen your spiritual tendencies and the warmth and energy in your heart. So now let us expand on this issue of ibadat and their role in tarbiyah. He says the spirit of ibadah is remembrance of Allah and getting rid of ghafla, heedlessness. This is the spirit of ibadah. The core of ibadah is remembrance of Allah. in Surah Taha, verse 14, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم أقم الصلاة للذكر أقم الصلاة للذكر, establish prayer for my remembrance. So what is the reason for establishing salat? Remembrance of Allah. So there can be different reasons, there can be a hierarchy of reasons, but for sure something at very high is remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Or in Surah Ankabut, verse 45, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Inna salata tanha anil fahsha'i wal munkar. Salat prohibits ugly actions, doing sins, etc., immoral actions. So one aim is to free ourselves and keep ourselves away from bad actions. But something higher than this is dhikr, remembrance of Allah. إن الصلاة تنهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر ولذكر الله أكبر. Remembrance of Allah is greater. And if you have remembrance of Allah, certainly you don't do bad things. But if you just don't do bad things, is not enough. Remembrance of Allah has more to offer. So, ibadah is for remembrance and getting rid of heedlessness. Sometimes ibadah is obligatory, sometimes it is recommended. Farida or nafila. On the other hand, Islam doesn't just encourage remembrance. Islam also says you should avoid anything that can make you heedless or make you forget. They can become makruh or even haram. For example, speaking too much, eating too much, sleeping too much, wasting time in, idle and useless, conversations, etc. Sometimes they are makruh, sometimes they can reach level of haram. For example, watching haram movies, going to haram gatherings, they all, stop being in state of remembrance, being mindful. We don't say if you, for example, speak too much, it's haram always. But at least it is makruh. But if it involves ghaiba, backbiting, etc., or sometimes lahv, like haram music, then it can become haram. Some of these instructions of Islam may have medical also aspect. For example, when we say, don't eat too much, it's good for your health as well. Don't sleep too much. It's good for your health as well. But it's not that they are legislated only for the sake of physical health or for the sake of, improvement of our bodily situation. Actually, Islam instructs us in the way that is good for body and the soul. But it's not just body. Many of these things, in addition to being harmful for body, they are harmful for our soul because they stop remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then he says, ibadah by itself doesn't come with a form, a structure, routine, discipline. You can anytime do ibadah with remembrance of Allah But Islam introduces also some structure, some forms, some disciplines. Time-wise, or how much quantity should be there, what time, what to say, how to perform it. For example, it's not that we just sit for a few minutes remembering Allah or contemplating. We have adhan, iqama, takbiratul ihram, qira'ah, qiyam, ruku, sujood, tashahhud. You know, there is a structure, there's a design, it's like a performance. Yeah, it's a performance. So this is very important in Islam. It could be without this, but in this way Islam is educating us to be people who have plan for everything they do, they have a structure, they have design, they are concerned about the beauty, about also unity, conformity of what they do. They are punctual, they are clean. Lots of things are considered in these acts of worship, and they have educational impact, they have social impact. It's not just, do ibadah, sit and, talk to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or, contemplate, recite Quran, for example. It's not just that. So he says, although the spirit of ibadah is connection between the servant and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and getting rid of heedlessness, but Islam has given form and shape to ibadah. When it comes to the spirit, we know that it's the heart that matters. There is a hadith hadith reported in Al-Jami' al-Saghir, is a Sunni collection of hadith, that Rasulullah said, إن الله ينظر إلى قلوبكم ولا ينظر إلى صوركم. Of course, this can be understood from the Quran also, that Allah doesn't look at our faces or our body, Allah looks at our heart. Taqwa is a matter of heart. So ibadah is a matter of heart. Allah looks at the heart, but still He says, I want you to observe something about your body, about your clothes, about the space, etc. For example, how much emphasis is put in Islam on cleanliness, physical cleanliness, ritual cleanliness, and then spiritual cleanliness. All are important. Your clothes should be clean, your body should be clean, the place that you are saying salat should be clean. Details, of course, how much it should be learned from fiqh. Why we should, make so much, usage of, for example, wuzu, ghusl, we use, water, ablution, wash our body, our clothes. Why? Someone says, I want to do ibadah, and maybe some people say, in order to be more detached from dunya, I want to have a clothes which is not very clean or nice. I say no. Islam wants you to be a person that in all his life is clean. Even if you are not doing ibadah, you should be clean. You should have tahara, you should have wudu all the time. Or when it comes to social rights, حقوق اجتماعي. For example, maybe someone says, I want to do ibadah. What is wrong if I do it in the place which is not owned by me, or I don't have permission, is qasbi, is usurped? Ibadah is ibadah. Why I should have permission? Why the clothes should belong to me, the carpet or rug or whatever I am praying on, the space, I should have permission? Why so much emphasis on these things? the water that I am using for wuzu, or even the place that this water of wuzu may, for example, go into. Yeah, I have to be careful. Ayatullah Mutahhari says Islam wants us all to educate us through these instructions that observe rights of people, be very mindful of rights of people. It's not just you do ibadah, you learn also how to be a person who is very respectful to the rights of others. Or for example, unity. We can do ibadah to any direction. Quran says, Surah Baqarah verse 115, وَلِلَّهِ الْمَشْرِقُ وَالْمَغْرِبُ فَأَيْنَمَا تُوَلُّوا فَثَمَّ وَجْهُ اللَّهِ. East and west belong to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Wherever you turn, Allah's face is there. You can find Him everywhere. You can turn to Him everywhere. Yes. Therefore, sometime when you are walking, sleeping, sitting, you are not facing Qibla, still you can make dua, you can connect to Allah. But when it comes to the ritual acts of worship, many times you find that a requirement is facing Qibla. Any part of the world you should find nearest direction to Mecca and face Mecca. This is bringing discipline. This is bringing coherence. Imagine if we go to the mosque, every person is doing ibadah in one direction, another direction, different directions. It's a sign of being in chaos, a sign of having no order, no unity. But now we go to the masjid, you see all people, even if someone is doing his nafilah, they face the same direction. Then next masjid in the city, other cities, other countries, all face one point. So facing Allah should bring unity among us, not divide us or make us, remain in our separations. So this is another educational aspect that Allah has considered about that. And also, why Mecca? Why one point? Because of unity. But why that one point is Mecca? Maybe we could be told, everyone should face North Pole or South Pole, for example. Because Mecca has history. إن أول بيت وضع للناس للذي ببكة مباركة. Surah Al Imran, verse 96. The very first house which has ever been built for mankind is the house in Mecca. This is house of God and house of people. It's the house for worship from the beginning. This is the house that reminds us of Ibrahim, ala nabina wa salam, and also before Ibrahim, because Ibrahim didn't build it for the first time. It was built before, and it was damaged, and it was restored. So Ayatullah Mutahhari says, always when Kaaba was damaged, it had to be restored. It was not supposed to be left, abandoned. وَإِذْ يَرْفَعُ إِبْرَاهِيمُ الْقَوَاعِدَ مِنَ الْبَيْتِ. Ulama say, يرفع إبراهيم القواعد. He was raising and erecting the foundations. It means that there were foundations. He didn't lay the foundations. Foundations were there, but he rebuilt on remaining foundations. So we point at Mecca because of being the first place of worship, being for mankind, being mindful of what Ibrahim did, what previous prophets did, all these things. So this is a respect again to ibadah, a respect to people of devotion like Ibrahim. And of course he says, we don't worship Kaaba. We face Kaaba, but we don't worship Kaaba. Another aspect of ibadat, acts of worship, which relate to education, is it's an exercise for self-control, for being disciplined. He says we find this in Salat, we find this in Hajj, we find it somehow in fasting, that we are not able to do whatever we like during these ibadat. Even in Hajj, we have, ihram, we have lots of things to observe. During fasting, there are many things to avoid. And Salat, the same. For example, when you want to start Salat, in addition to making sure that you have tahara, you have permission to use that place, Qibla is observed, then you have to avoid talking. You cannot talk to people during Salat. You cannot laugh during Salat. You cannot cry for dunya, worldly reasons in Salat. You cannot eat or drink during Salat. You cannot turn away from Qibla during the Salat. So lots of disciplines. This is not to be just limited to Salat. This is to make us a person who has discipline in life. We learn and start in Salat, but then we should learn how to become organized all the time. And this gives you also willpower, that you can learn how not to speak, not to use your mobile for some time, and then inshallah you can learn how to use them properly outside Salat. Or punctuality, about time. You can do about any time, but these ritual acts of worship, they come with some specific times. إن الصلاة كانت كتابا موقوتا. It has timing. Even 1 second before the time comes, you cannot start Salat. Even 1 second, let alone 1 minute or 1 hour. We could, say, okay, say Salat anytime. But Islam says no. This has to be performed from this time to this time, not even shortly before or shortly after. Even for daily nawafil, again, there is a timing. Yes, you have some flexibility, because maybe people are not able to do it exactly, if we had only few minutes and then it becomes qaza. It was not possible for most of people. But there is a flexibility, but the beginning, the end are very fixed. So this is also very good, that we learn how to be mindful of time and respect time of people. Imam of Jama'ah, Ma'mumin, they learn how to observe time. Another thing is to be peaceful and seeking peace. In the discussion about collective nature of wilaya, I have mentioned some aspects of this collectivity in Islam. Ayatullah Mutahhari here makes a good reference to 2 points in Salat about collectivity. One is at the beginning, when we recite Surah Al-Hamd, we say إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينُ اهْدِنَا الصِّرَاطَ الْمُسْتَقِيمِ. We use na, اهْدِنَا نَعْبُدُ, which is what we say in Arabic, متكلم مع الغير, means us, we. We don't say, I worship you only, or I ask you for guidance. Although in ibadah, maybe someone says, let me be alone with God. At least during ibadah, let me not to think about others, just me and God. But Islam says no. You, God, and people. It's always important that you cannot bypass people, and you cannot bypass your relations. Actually, your relation with God is built, maintained, and strengthened through your relations with others. How you deal with your parents, how you deal with your spouse, how do you deal with children, with colleagues, clients, etc. They're very important. So, إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينُ. And this is to make you mindful, not selfish, not individualist. And at the end, Assalamu alayna wa ala ibadillah as-salihin. Assalamu alaykum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So you are offering peace and requesting peace from Allah for others. Ibadillah as-salihin. So it's not that we don't bother about others, or we wish, na'udhu billah, bad for others. No place for selfishness, for jealousy. Then niyyah. Another aspect of ibadah, all ibadat need niyyah, intention. In usul al-fiqh, we say wajibat are either ta'abbudi or tawassuli with sad. Either they are devotional or non-devotional. Tawassuli means doesn't need intention. Like if you want to clean your clothes, as long as cleaning is done properly, it's fine. It's done by a machine, it's fine. It's done by a person who is sleepy and during sleep is doing something. But if it's done properly, it's fine. Or you do it without intention, it's fine. Because this is ta'abbudi or tawassuli, it's tawassuli. Means just you have to do it. But ibadat are devotional. They all need qasd qurbah. Khub, qasd qurbah has two elements. One is attention. One is why you do this. So when we say you should have good intention or intention of qurbah, means first you have to have attention, and then you do it for good reason, for getting closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So lots of emphasis has been put in Islam on niyyah. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "La amala illa biniyyah." There is no action except with intention. Means without intention, that action has no moral significance. It has to be with intention. Or لِكُلِّ امْرِئٍ مَا نَوَى. For every person, what he or she has intended will be remaining, registered. You will benefit from what you have intended, not from what you haven't intended. So this is very important, to have good level of consciousness and attention, and then good reason for doing something. He says, Ayatullah al-Uzma Burujerdi Rizwanullah Ta'ala had a fatwa or had a fiqhi opinion, maybe fatwa or ihtiyat, I don't know, he doesn't mention the details, that he says initially we were surprised, but then we realized that what could be the reason for it. Ulama normally say that when you do salat, you should have intention, but intention is something that could be implicit. So in your heart, you know what you want to do. Yeah, for example, you want to do Salat al-Zuhr, qurbatan ila Allah. As long as you know what you are doing and why you are doing, that's enough. Ayatullah Burujerdi apparently had the idea that you need to review this in your mind. You don't need to say it that I perform 4 rak'ah salat al-zuhr qurbatan ila Allah, for example. You don't need to say it. But he was saying, at least review it in your mind that I am performing 4 rak'ah salat zuhr qurbatan. Why? So that you have good level of attention. Because one of the things that can happen is that when we repeat something, after some time it can become a habit, aada. If ibadah becomes a habit, we discussed this in Insan Kamil, you remember. We said developing good habits is good as long as your consciousness is not finished. So if you do something as a robot, it has no value. But if you are used to, for example, saying salat on time, in the sense that it becomes more manageable, easier for you, this is good. But if it's so robotic that you don't know what you do, that's not good. So is developing habit good or bad? We say if it's developing good habit, it's good, because still I am free and still I am not doing it robotically. But if it's become merely a habit, without understanding I am doing, then this is a problem. For example, if wudu has become a habit, and just I do it, and I don't know why I'm doing, and if I don't do it, I feel, very bad, not because I am missing wudu, just because I have not done my habit. Like a person that, for example, if he doesn't smoke or doesn't, drink tea or coffee at certain time, they get upset. Wudu has become like this for them. We don't want wudu to be like this. We want to have habit of making wudu, but out of love, out of understanding, not as a routine, only a routine, or as a robotic action. And therefore, if one time comes that Allah says, no, don't make wudu, you have to give this water, for example, to a thirsty person or thirsty even animal, I say okay. But if it is my habit, I cannot give water and remain without wudu. Or fasting in the months of Ramadan, it should become a habit, but not a habit in the sense that you do it anyway. Even if you are ill, you say, I have habit of fasting. All my life I've been fasting. This is damaging your health, then I don't bother. You are musafir, you shouldn't fast after certain conditions are met. So no, I have the habit of fasting from my childhood. This type of habit is not helpful and can be sometimes harmful because you are acting against your duty. So niyyah has 2 elements. One is attention, consciousness, knowing what you are doing, and second is why you are doing. Is it for the sake of Allah or not? We have this hadith from the Prophet, Niyyatul mu'min khayrun min amalih. Intention of mu'min is better than his action. There are different interpretations for this, and actually some of them can be together presented. Ayatullah Mutahhari says it's not that you say, okay, you can choose between action alone or niyyah alone, and if you are choosing between these two, niyyah alone is better than action alone. He says no, we should have both action and niyyah. Niyyah alone is not enough unless you are not able to do something. Sometimes you have a good niyyah but you cannot do it. Still, you will be rewarded for good niyyah if you are not able to do it. But if you are able to do it, you have to do it. It means that when you have niyyah and action, which side is more important? Niyyah. Like you have soul and body, or a spirit and body, and they need to be together so that you can be alive. But body is more important than the spirit. Which one makes your identity? Spirit. A spirit is more important than body. Actions have some physical dimensions and some spiritual. The spirit of action is niyyah, is ma'rifah, it's love, sincerity. All these things are making the spirit of action. Sometimes you look at physics of actions of people, and you may find actually this person is doing it better. For example, if we listen to recitation of qira'ah in salat of a professional reciter of the Quran and one of ulama Rabbani, maybe that reciter says salat more beautifully, yeah, but you cannot say, oh, his salat is better in quality, definitely, because we don't see the spirit of the action. What is happening between that person and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in his heart is not known to us. So we shouldn't judge based on the physics of the actions. Niyyatul mu'min khayrun min amal. Actually, the niyyah is more important than the physics of the actions. And also many times mu'mineen love to do better and more. For niyyah there is no limit. Yeah, you can always intend to do better and more. But then outside, what happens is dependent on many factors. There can be many limitations. I can have niyyah of teaching 1,000 people, but maybe I don't have a space to welcome 1,000 people, or there is no interest in 1,000 people. So what happens is maybe few people come. But my niyyah should not be limited. Make your niyyah large. Allahumma baffir bilutfika niyyati. One of the du'as that we should do is to ask Allah to make our niyyah abundant. Do whatever you can in niyyah, and then in outside also do whatever you can. When it comes to niyyah, there is no limit. When it comes to outside, there can be restrictions, but I do my best. Of course, this works for people that they really do their best. Yeah. So, for example, if I can feed 10 people, there are 10 poor people, and I can feed them. If I have niyyah of feeding 10 people and actually feed them, so I get reward of 10 and at least multiply 10 times. Man ja'a bil hasana falahu ashru amthala. Yeah? So at least 100 times. It can be much more. مثل الذين ينفقون أموالهم في سبيل الله كمثل حبة أنبتت 7 سنابل في كل سنبلة 100 حبة. It can become 700, it can become more. But the minimum is من جاء بالحسنة فله عشر أمثالها. I made niyyah of feeding 10 people and I fed 10 people, I get the reward of at least 100, for example. But why I don't make niyyah of feeding 100 people, even if you know that you can only feed 10 people? Say, oh Allah, I want to feed 100 people. There are 100 poor people here. I want to feed all of them. I can only feed 10, but I want to feed all of them. Please help me. Maybe in the end you can only again feed 10 people. Okay? So in action, there is no difference. In both scenarios, Whether you had intention of feeding 10 or you had intention of feeding 100, you couldn't feed more than 10, but the reward is different. When you had intention of feeding 10 and you fed 10, so 10 in 10 is 100, the minimum. But when you had intention of feeding 100 and you only could feed 10, so 10 in 10 becomes 100 plus 90 people you didn't manage to feed, but you had intention. So you get at least one hasana for every person that you had intention. So 90 plus 100 becomes 190, to simplify. So you got 90 hasana without actually doing anything more. Now, if I have intention of feeding 1 million people and I only can feed 10 people, then I get 999,900 hasana extra. And if I have the intention of feeding all people of the world, even I say, I want to make arrangement that even after I die, all people can be fed. I love to do this. I will work on this. But maybe I am not able to do anything. But as long as you have intention, you get reward. But this can only be accepted from someone that does his best. So you can feed 10 and feed 10, and then we go to the realm of intention. But if you can feed 10 and then you feed 9 people and say, I have intention of feeding 1 million people or 1,000 people, no, this is not acceptable, because you could still feed one more person and you didn't. So you see how much difference it makes if someone does his best and then in heart can grow. We don't see difference outside, but it makes a big difference in Allah's sight. So alhamdulillah, we finished this part. There are some remaining points when it refers to the ideas of some other people, and maybe inshallah we can discuss in the next session. Bismillah. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen.
Jazakallah.
May Allah bless you.
Do we have any question here? Yes, I think there is no question.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we can end with dua.
Yeah.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala
There is a question. If you can.
Yes.
Yeah, Batul. Sister Batul.
Assalamualaikum.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
Thank you for coming back. MashaAllah.
Alhamdulillah.
Your dars is great. MashaAllah.
Alhamdulillah. Please pray.
I think you have great ability to convey your view. MashaAllah. So nicely conveyed your view. If any question raised, next moment you answer that in your lecture, in your dars.
Alhamdulillah. Please pray for us.
MashaAllah, very nice. Question is, try to ask, when we explain heart or qalb, we common man feel that it's talk about what's what thing we want. Our wants or wishes connected with the heart. So, how can we explain heart or qalb? I think I can't explain my question.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't understand, but it's fine. Whatever you can explain. Do you want to repeat or?
Sorry, I think I don't explain more properly what I want to say.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's fine, and I am just sorry that I cannot understand or explain. If Brother Mubashir, if you understood, you can tell me.
No, I didn't understand actually.
Okay. Do you want to say in another language, sister? Or
Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh.
Alaikum assalam.
I can explain. I think
Okay.
what sister is asking is that in our cultures,
Yes.
when we talk about qalb,
Yes.
we mean, or heart, we mean something that is coming from our nafs when we say, I want to do this thing, or want to that, something coming from the heart. But when we speak in religious terms, qalb has a different meaning. So she's asking you to explain it more to her, so how we can explain to other people that qalb is something more intellectually and connecting the nafs to the spiritual dimensions. I think that is what she meant.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, sister. Thank you very much for the help.
Ahsan. Yeah, actually, we discussed about heart recently in Ma'arif al-Quran by Ayatullah Misbah. Is available, online. Maybe if you go back 2-3 sessions, the lectures for middle of August, it's about the usage of heart in the Quran. The conclusion is that heart, according to the Quran, is very similar to the spirit. Heart is responsible for our understanding, for our moral qualities. Iman, kufr, nifaq, all these are about heart. The only thing that heart is not associated with is physical actions. Physical actions, although they can be related to soul and ruh by being responsible for managing our body, but this is not that much associated to the heart in the Quran. So when we say something is in my heart as an inclination, it means that in my spirit, in my soul, I have this tendency. But tendencies in the heart are not by themselves hujjah, are not proof. In Islam, aql is hujjah. Aql is related to the heart. But heart as a whole is not hujjah. Why? Because qalb is always subject to changes. Actually, qalb in Arabic means change, transformation. Inqilab means transformation. So, if we are in the God-given condition of fitrah, our heart has good inclinations, desires. Automatically, you love good things and you don't love bad things. We have some hadith that sometimes, for example, they say, refer to your heart. Istafti qalbak. Ask your heart. وَإِنْ أَفْتَاكَ الْمُفْتُونَ. But this is for people that are in good condition, because a human being can reach the point that their heart becomes upside down, mankus. Therefore, they no longer feel anything bad when they do bad things. Even actually, they can enjoy doing bad things. In their heart, no problem. They feel very good. There are people who annoy people and enjoy. Why? Because heart is very changeable. First, heart works as Allah has set it up. If you follow the instructions, then it will be saved for you. But if you disregard the setup of Allah and make your own setup, then it can be confusing. Someone says, I don't feel in my heart, I should go to masjid. I don't feel, I should give my money for homes. Then this is a problem. Sorry, I think I have to see who is ringing the bell. Just a moment.
We general people decide our things if on heart based, emotional decisions are not good actually.
Sir, please. Yeah, sister, please wait. Aga is not here. Just wait for.
Do you need anything? I need your help. Okay. Okay? Inshallah. Thank you. Inshallah. You're welcome. Sorry, it was my neighbor ringing. Okay. Is there any other question?
Actually, emotions are connected with the heart.
Yes. But emotions are not always good. Emotions.
Yeah, we mostly decide bad decisions if we based on heart.
Yeah, so emotions should be regulated. For example, sometimes, you don't want to do something, you have bad, feeling, but you have to do it. Yeah? For example, maybe your child doesn't want to go to school and is, crying in front of you, when for the first time you put them in school, they don't want to go to school. They start crying. So as a mother, what do? You don't want your child cry, but you know that here you cannot go by emotions. You have to go by aql. You have to resist against your emotions. So many times things happen in the life that if we go by only emotions, then we cannot make proper decision. But strong believers are the people that their emotions actually always come from their aql. So they know something is good, they then want it. If something is bad, they don't want it at all. They don't need to go through internal conflict. But at least we need to be always watching our emotions and regulate them.
Thank you very much.
May Allah bless you, inshallah.
Thank you, Aga. You can conclude with dua.
Okay.
Thank you.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد اللهم كل وليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك توعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا وامن علينا برضاه وهب لنا رأفته ورحمته ودعاءه وخيره اللهم اشف مرضانا اللهم ارحم موتانا اللهم اقض حوائجنا اللهم أد عنا الدين وأغننا من الفقر برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. التماس دعاء.
Thank you.
في أمان الله. خدا حافظ.